Colorado Buffalo football. So for those of you that are joining us on the radio side, here we go. Joining us right now from Pac-12 Media Day, head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, Carl Durrell, our special guest here on Wildcats Radio 1290. We got a chance to catch up last year. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you again this year. How are things?
I appreciate it, Rich. Glad to be on, and everything's good. Thank you.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Colorado football. Last year, 3-6, 4-8. There were a lot of expectations coming in, but this Pac-12 conference, I don't think people understand how tough it is to slug your way through the teams that we have in this conference.
I agree. I think that's something that coming off of a COVID season when it was kind of that restricted 6-game season, it really didn't show, I would say, the true dynamics of our conference until we played last year. I think with the start of our season and the expectations, things like that, playing a young quarterback, and we had some challenges early on because we're supposed to have a very big quarterback battle. Then one of the guys got hurt, and we ended up being where it was Brendan Lewis, really toting the role for the whole season. Now, I think Brendan Lewis, I have a lot of respect for him, and particularly where he is now. He's a completely different player in a great way. But for him to challenge of really running our system offensively and staying healthy, and he took a lot of sacks and a lot of things that really weren't perfect for a young quarterback to deal with. He had to deal with a lot, and I think he's grown quite a bit from it. He's learned quite a bit from it, and he's ready for the challenge of this season, in a great way.
There was some changeover, some roster turnover, and some changes in the coaching staff. Talk to us about the new culture and the players that have come in and the staff that you have and the new coordinators that we have in Colorado.
Sure. We did have some changes on our staff that I think were really important changes. There's no change in our culture, though. Our culture is all about our players anyway. They're our best attribute, our best assets. That's why we're here, to get them to be, developed both on and off the field. But I would say from a coaching standpoint, we needed some change offensively. I wanted to go in a different direction of just a different philosophy of what we were doing, and to develop our quarterback and really to improve a lot of the facets offensively that we struggled with a year ago. So those things have been very positively received with our players and with the staff. And the biggest thing that I think you'll see, Rich, is there's a lot of energy on this staff. They do a great job relating to our young people, and that's why those are big elements of why we're going to make a tremendous jump going into this year.
Colorado beat Arizona last year 34-8. They come to Tucson on October 1st this year. Let's talk a little bit about Mike Sanford, who comes in to run the offense. What are we going to see in his playbook?
You're going to see multiplicity. What you like about what I liked and was attracted to with Mike was, first of all, was how he developed different styles of quarterback that he's had in his career. I think he's been very progressive and done those things well. And then I would say the second part is that his breadth of offensive knowledge. He's been in a number of systems offensively because of the styles of quarterbacks and have had success. So he has great experience for such a young coach. So I think he's done a great job with in really instilling the offensive attitude, the installation of how the whole process works. Everything has been really, in a very, I would say, structured way. So very pleased with what he's done so far.
Okay, I'm not sure who made the schedule, but that's a heck of a weekend schedule for you this season. Colorado was through TCU, Air Force. I think one of the most underappreciated teams in college football.
I agree.
Minnesota, we know what they can do. Like we said, you're going to come to Tucson on October 1st, and then you finish up with a gauntlet of Oregon, USC, Washington, and Utah. You know what? Whatever doesn't hurt you is going to make you stronger.
No question. There's no question. And those are things you talk about as a program in the off season about those challenges that are before you. But you can't look at the end road. You got to look at what's in front of you right away. So that's TCU. That's us. Maybe making sure that we have a great camp. We have a great preparation for that game and having success there. It starts in the first game for us to have the type of season we're expecting ourselves to have. So we feel we're capable. We feel we're very capable of having a really good season.
This is your third year.
This is going into year 3. Yep.
You're going into year 3. Although first year was kind of tough because it was COVID and it was a little odd trying to get started.
Sure.
What have you known? What have you learned about the culture and what Buffalo football means to the folks of the Rocky Mountain part of the country?
Well, what I've learned is that we've retrained that whole process about what it takes to be successful. And that took some transitional time to do in terms of the attitude, the mindset, your work ethic, the commitment as a team, being connected. Those things were some things that were missing in our program for I don't know how long. But those are things that we worked on, we've coveted, we've talked about, we've worked on. I think our team is as close a team as we've ever been, and I think we'll continue to get closer and stronger and better as we keep building these recruiting classes. So we're on the right track.
Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Best of luck. We will see you in Tucson on October 1st.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rich.
Appreciate it, Coach. Thank you
bet.
so much.
Have a good day.
All right, take care now. All right, we're at Pac-12 Media Day as we just finished up with Coach Terrell of the Washington Huskies, and now the man of the hour that we've all been waiting to talk to is going to sit down with us, and we'll stay right here on the stream. We'll keep rolling back in the studios because the commissioner of the Pacific 12 Conference, George Kliavkoff, is getting ready to sit down with us. And we'll talk to him in just a second. He's actually standing there talking with Coach Terrell right now. So I'll let those two chit-chat for a little bit, but I'll remind everybody on Facebook and YouTube that we're going to be here all day long, and then we'll have a lot of these interviews that we'll have for you a little bit later during the week here on Wildcats Radio 1290. So we're going to get the commissioner to make his way down here. He had his earlier remarks a little bit earlier today, and the commissioner's going to sit down with us. And again, Commissioner, how are you? We're live on YouTube and and Facebook Live right now as well.
Great.
Just to let you know. So for those of you back in the radio studio, this is the interview that I've been waiting for. So let's go ahead and get this going here on Wildcats Radio 1290. So here we go. All right, thanks for joining us, everybody. We're live at Pac-12 Media Day. The man that everybody in the country wanted to hear from today is the commissioner of the Pacific 12 Conference. George Kliavkoff is joining us here on Wildcats Radio 1290. Mr. Commissioner, thank you so much for making time.
Good to be with you, Rich. Good to be with you, Rich. Thanks for having me.
All right, so I'm going to talk about you like you're not here.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that I'm perfectly transparent because I know you're ready for the speak writer. I told our fans, I told our listeners, there's no one I'd rather have in the commissioner's office than you. And you've come on the radio with us a number of times, and you know that we have so many mutual friends from folks that worked at BAM and a lot of other people. I'm glad that you're running this conference, and I got all the confidence in the world in you that we're going to get past all of this. So let me start off with, I know you talked to the media downstairs. I didn't get a chance to listen because we already got started up here. What's the state of our conference?
The 10 remaining members are highly confident about staying together and growing. Our board has given us clear direction to focus on growing our media rights, taking the media rights out for sale as soon as we can, as soon as the Big Ten deal is done, and then focusing on expansion after that. So that's terrific. It's great news.
So right now we are in that holding pattern as we have the 30-day window with Fox and ESPN for exclusive renegotiation of our media rights.
What I would say is all of our contracts have exclusivity clauses, but they also have non-transparency clauses. I can't talk about what's in those contracts. What I can tell you is that it looks like the Big Ten deals are going to conclude sometime in the next month. And as soon as those deals conclude, we'll be in a position where we can negotiate with anybody for anything, and I look forward to that opportunity.
So for the fans of this conference, and I think it caught everybody by surprise. What was your reaction back? how difficult is these last 3 weeks?
Yeah, the last 4 weeks. Yeah, the last 4 weeks have been difficult. And busy. I was on my first vacation, second day of my first vacation in a year in Montana. I called back. And listen, this is when your character gets tested. When you go through difficult stuff. And our senior leadership team, our athletic directors, and our presidents and chancellors have been in lockstep, meeting twice a week with our presidents and chancellors, our board. And just to put that in perspective, historically we've met 3 times a year. So twice a week for the last 4 weeks we've been meeting. Everybody is aligned. Everybody is committed. Everyone's number one choice, top priority is keeping the Pac-12 together, getting our media rights deal done, and then inviting folks to join our conference.
Can we talk about inviting? That's a lot of things. Speculation here. And on CBS Sports Radio as well. What are you going to look for as far as who makes sense to become a new member of this conference?
The criteria is starting with kind of the market, right? It has to make sense from a television standpoint and from a rating standpoint, and the market is really important. Second is athletic fit, right? Are they at the level to join the Conference of Champions, right? They really have to have deep athletic expertise. Academic and cultural fit is important, always is important to our presidents and chancellors. And then you kind of layer on top of that this idea that one of the things we're not going to do is do a deal where money drives over the health and well-being of our student athletes. I think if you look at the UCLA and USC decisions, I think their student athletes are going to suffer as a result of them going for the short-term money. We're not going to put our student athletes in that position. We're not going to do something, we're not going to add a school in Boston and travel our kids to Boston to play. Just not going to happen.
What's the relationship going to be like for the next couple of years with the Trojans and the Bruins? I got to imagine when they come through different cities, there's going to be some folks that aren't going to be happy with them.
I think it's going to be some of the tensest, most exciting, full stadiums we've ever seen in the Pac-12. I think it's going to be a significant, intense rivalry with every one of our other schools. I will tell you that for the next 2 years, the student athletes can make that choice. Student athletes are Pac-12 athletes, and we're going to treat them like Pac-12 athletes. We're going to give them every opportunity to succeed, and we're going to root for them, particularly in non-conference games.
Listening to the folks over on Pac-12 radio, and they were pointing out for someone like Caleb Williams, by the time all this is done, his eligibility is going to be over, and he'll be off to do whatever he does next. So you're right. The student athletes aren't the ones that are elbow deep.
I'll tell you, the younger students who are going to have to transition from being in the Pac-12 to being in the Big Ten will have to deal with it for a year or two. I think the kind of longer, more interesting long-term effect is I actually think in all sports, but maybe football, and we can talk about football, but in all other sports, I think this is a huge boon to the recruiting for all of our other sports, for all of the rest of the Pac-12. Kids do not want to go live in Los Angeles and travel to Rutgers to play games. They want their family to be able to come find them and come to their games. I think it's going to be an incredible benefit for the rest of our schools.
So I was going to ask you, how is this going to affect us recruiting-wise? Because Southern California is such a fertile spot for recruiting for the entire conference, from the Trinity League of high school football down to San Diego with Cathedral Catholic and Saints and all those big schools down there. Without having a Southern California footprint for the Pac-12, how is that going to affect us?
I wouldn't necessarily say we're not going to have a Southern California footprint. Right? There are different ways to do that. You could add schools in Southern California. You could also just choose to play games in LA. UCLA and USC don't own Los Angeles. Right? We already play the Rose Bowl here, and we will continue to play the Rose Bowl.
All right, you open the door for me then, because I know on CBS I'm on the fan in San Diego. People at San Diego State are clamoring, we want to be in this conference. What would you tell the people of San Diego that have been wanting to be part of the Pac-12 forever?
I'm not in a position to talk about any specific school.
I had to ask you the question.
I appreciate and respect the question, but you understand why I can't address that.
Okay, so let's go to a couple different things that some of our listeners have asked. The Pac-12 conference has been really good about all the sports, all the student athletes, Olympic sports, men's basketball, football. But obviously we see that football's driving the economic engine. You've talked about this, that we've gone from a compensation model to a free agency model. How do you in the conference make sure that we take care of this economic model that we're going into largely driven by football.
Well, in my speech today, I called for us to start meeting with student athletes to talk about how to recognize and reflect in the way that we give back to the student athletes the incredible value that they're creating. I drew the line, and I don't believe they should be employees, because if they're employees, they get drafted, they don't get to decide where to play. If they're not performing well, they could be fired or traded. Right? They're certainly not going to class if they're a professional football student. So I think there's a place to draw the line, but I think we have to engage in that conversation. And for me, the primacy has to be academics. They are student athletes, which means students first, athletes second. That's difficult sometimes in football, because we've got kids who, because of the NFL rules, are stuck in college for 3 years, unlike basketball where you get one and dones. And those are the student athletes who probably deserve the most.
Our time is limited, so let me go rapid fire for a couple things. Real quick, Dave Hickey, Dr. Robbins. I'm telling everybody I'm so thankful for Dr. Robbins. He's a president who gets it. How important are they in keeping this conference together?
They're key, and they're vocal about it. They love the conference. They love being in the conference. They're leaning in and helping the rest of their athletic director colleagues and president and chancellor colleagues. So I respect and appreciate them every day.
The future of the Rose Bowl.
No change. No change.
How much do we have to work hard as a conference to make sure we protect the granddaddy of them all?
Well, I think in the CFP room, there is discussion about what happens to the Rose Bowl. I've been the single most ardent defender of the Rose Bowl in that room, and I will continue to be. I believe in traditions.
Last one. This is kind of a tough one. Have you talked to your other conference commissioners? Have you talked to Commissioner Warren of the Big Ten, ACC? I mean, are you guys still communicating?
I talk regularly to three of the other four commissioners.
I'm just going to tell you this from the bottom of my heart. I really mean this, Commissioner.
Yeah.
There's no one else I'd rather have in your office right now. I know your work from back in BAM in the day when I worked in baseball. I followed your career. If you can get things done in Las Vegas, I've worked in Vegas before. If you can get things done in Vegas, I know you're going to keep this conference together and make it healthier by the time we're done. And I appreciate you spending some time with me.
That's very humbling, and I appreciate the sentiment, Rich. I really do. Thank you.
You've got my support 100%, whatever we can do.
Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. Appreciate it.